Good evening. How's it going? Comic Crack back. It's been a bit. I don't know if it was last weekend or when it was. I guess first things first. Let's do this. See if this works. Look at that sucker. That, my friends, is a new shelf, a new bookcase. It had to be done. Things were getting chaotic in here. So this gave me a chance to organize and get things set a little better. So I could put things away up over here. So we could do things like this. There's not 10 million books hanging out on top of these shelves. It's fantastic. Solid 4 ST Bend had a video where he was talking about reorganizing his little room. And that just got me thinking because the bookcase that I had there before just wasn't as practical. Not a lot of room. Um, the shelves were weird heights. So this is great. I've doubled up some of the rows. In the back, there's some books that I don't need total access to. There's stuff hidden back there, like my price gun, etc. Things from when I was selling that I'm still holding on to. Makes a world of difference. I can close that door, which is great. Really, really nice to have that and feel like things are a little more sorted. As I was doing all that, I managed to put together almost a full short box of stuff. Sold some of the things, went and dropped or delivered them today, actually, this afternoon. Um, yeah, worked out okay. Had a few hits, not too much. It's always a bit difficult selling stuff on in the Winnipeg Comics group that I'm a part of. Um, it's just difficult selling things in general, I think. And I had a bunch of random titles, but some good guys there anyway, and a few people picked up some things, which was awesome. I was there because the other reason I was there today was I did an order on Doug Salipa Comic World website, located in Steinbach, just outside of Winnipeg. And in the past, when I've ordered from him, as was true this time, he makes runs into the city and he'll drop off your books and you can pick them up at Thirsties. And I think I've mentioned it before that it's it's a hell of a service. He's got an amazing catalog on that website. It does take a little bit to kind of get the hang of where certain titles might be, and then just really utilizing that find feature on your browser to kind of make your job a little easier. But it's nice to kind of browse through anyway, just to see the kind of titles he has. Um, so I picked up some stuff there, so we were going to talk about that. The first thing I just wanted to briefly talk about, I'd started reading a couple of the things that I'd spoke about last time. Started in on the Storm issues. I had those two books from Titan. The story hasn't grabbed me immediately. The visuals are what grabbed me most, and our friend Russ corrected me. The artist that's on Storm isn't the same artist that did Wicked Wanda. Wicked Wanda? Yeah, different artist. I was mistaken. It's just the styles are so unbelievably similar that it just really reminds me of the Oh Wicked Wanda series. So I misspoke on that one. So thanks, Russ, for correcting me on that. What else did I read? Just having a look on the shelf. I read the Hugo Pratt, Milo Manara, Indian Summer book from Catalan Communications. Not a horrible story, pretty interesting. Um, it was a quick read. It didn't grab me. Again, it was the art is amazing and the story was pretty damn good. But now sitting here talking about it, I couldn't tell you too much about the story, other than kind of a mistaken identity sort of tale, and then a kind of that starts kind of a war. Pretty good overall. But the one that stood out for me was this one, and I know I'm late to the game. It's not like people who watch this channel haven't heard of Concrete. I imagine if you're watching this Comic Crack channel, you know this book very well. It's one that's been on my radar for a long time. I have a lot of the single issues from some of the mini series. I just every time I see them for cheap, I just end up picking them up with the idea eventually I'm going to have enough of a run that I can sit and kind of read them. So this one collects the short stories from Dark Horse Presents, or at least the short stories from 1986 to 1989 from Dark Horse Presents, and I have a bunch of those issues as well too. But it's nice to have it in one book, and I really really enjoyed it. I can see the appeal of the stories. Um, this guy, and I mean, so far, one of the other things that I've enjoyed about it is so far they haven't really dug in too much as to um, how he became concrete. Just that here we are, we meet up with our hero, and he is this being, this human that's been transformed into this giant rock creature slash person, and he's just trying to make his way through the world, and what he's going to do. I really like, there's a couple of stories where he's answering fan mail from people, including who's just infatuated with him. He's kind of her muse as far as her artistic output goes, and she photographs him, etc., etc. Really, really enjoyable. I love just the idea of this. There's a couple of really just humorous bits when he's interacting with some people who are kind of less than perfect, let's say, and kind of using him to some degree, using him for kind of his name and who he is and his fame. Uh, Really enjoyed the book though quite a bit. That was kind of a one night read as well too. Once I kind of got started on it, I couldn't put it down. So that was really nice. Those are the ones that are jumping out at me right now. I've started reading, what was it, Tex Arcana. I only just started it, so I'm only a few pages into it. Seems appealing so far. Um, yeah, those are the ones that have been on there, and then I've been still kind of reading some Comics Journal stuff. Specifically, I've been reading the Kenneth Smith interview from this issue of Comics Journal. This is summer 1979, uh, super summer special. What issue is this? What issue number is this? So Kenneth Brown, who will, issue number 48, who we'll talk about in a minute here, because I have some stuff of his that I picked up today. From what I understand, he started writing for the journal as well too. Did I say Kenneth Brown? Kenneth Smith. Sorry, I think I said Kenneth Brown. Kenneth Smith. Yo, crack. Hello, weird dad. How's it going? Um, yeah, it is a good cover for sure. He's wordy, and they're talking about some topics that have enough interest, but it is a bit of a slog going through this interview to some degree, if I'm honest. And from what I understand, again, I think it was Russ who was telling me that was kind of one of the criticisms of when he started working for the journal and writing for the journal, was that his stuff was pretty dense and difficult to kind of penetrate sometimes. I can see that. Not that they're talking about stuff that's completely boring. It's just it's not catching me. It's difficult. It's a difficult read. Anyway, so I've been reading that in kind of preparation for what I'm going to show you in a bit here. But to kind of start out, again, through the Comic World website there, I was looking for Nostalgia Journal. I was looking for Early Comics Journal. I'd like to kind of fill in those gaps early on. The completist in me wants to make sure that I grab those early things now that I had that first new Nostalgia Journal with Gary Groth that kind of sparked this. Let's see what else is out there. And what else is out there, it turns out, is the new Nostalgia Journal issue number 29, which I picked up. and then what is the first official comics journal. So this is Nostalgia Journal slash Comics Journal, issue number 32. So the first time that they used the Comics Journal title on the actual newspaper. And then picked up just an early Comics Journal that I didn't have, issue number 39, with a very Spain Rodriguez looking woman there. That angle is very Spain Rodriguez with those thick legs. So pick those up. The interesting, well, I mean, there's many interesting things about it. I read through this issue. Really great. I won't do kind of a deep dive into these like I did previously. Uh, I don't know if it's necessary to do that. One thing that stood out to me was, let me just get this organized here. Um, there we go. Larry Charest, 1219 Devon Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. So I figured I'd type that sucker in and see what comes up. And again, maybe there's a bunch of you out there who, as soon as you see that name, you know. But I found a link to the Chicago Reader, a Chicago Reader um, interview from, it looks like July 29th, 1999. I don't have that Kevin Eastman one. No, I did see the kayfabe, the cartoonist kayfabe guys talk about it though. Incredible video that they put up. Sounds like an amazing interview. That's on my list. I mean, I still have a lot of gaps in my comics journal collection, even though now it's kind of a magazine box and a half at least. But no, that is one that I do not have. But I really I'd love to have that one to read it with my own eyes. So this is July 29th, 1999. A guy named Peter Erickson. Larry's comic book store smells of old paper. Charest in his early 50s. He opened his store here at 1219 West Devon in 1972. So here we go. So that's the individual who this was made out to. Turns out that in the 80s, what does it say? 82. Um, In the 90s, they talk about the comics. Yeah, here we go. In the early 70s, Charest had visited comic conventions in New York. Impressed, he and his two partners started Chicago Comic Con in 1976. And their first show was in the Playboy building. He says, "We lost a lot of money, but my thinking was you have to put on a great show when you're new, or else no one will come back." The next year, we moved to the Congress Hotel. We stayed there until 83. Then, to accommodate all the people who drove in, we moved to the O'Hare Ramada Inn. We stayed there until 1992. We had outgrown it. We went to the Rosemont Convention Center next. We were drawing nearly 30,000 people, making us the second largest Comic Con in the US after San Diego. So there we go. That's who this is. I found him on Facebook as well too, and sent him a message, but the account hasn't been used since like 2017, so I don't expect much of a response. But very cool. So I imagine that these that he had a bunch of these sent to his store, so they all would have had his address on them, possibly, is what my guess is. It's strange to me that they would send them individually, so maybe I'm incorrect about that, but I find it hard to believe that I have kind of his personal copies. I imagine because he was a store that that's how they came across his desk or his office. Um, so that's very cool. Love having those. But I think actually let's go into this one first before we kind of finish strong. It'll probably be a bit of a shorter video depending on how many people show up and if there's any discussion or questions. When I was at the flea market today dropping stuff off and picking up these magazines, had to look through one of the bins while I was waiting for one of the guys to show up, and there was a 50% off sale going at a booth that I often kind of dig through. And they had a good section of kind of new stuff laid out that I haven't seen before. And then underneath the table, there was a couple of boxes with some magazines. And buried in the middle of that was one of the Epic Comics Mobius series. This is Mobius 5, The Gardens of Edena. Price tag of $6, so 50% off of that. Three whole dollars. It's in a bit of rough shape, no doubt, but it's fine by me, man. $3 is $3. So that's a nice one to add to the Mobius collection, or that Moebius collection that I have going of this epic stuff. Recently, there was a local guy who had a kind of reply sold sort of quote unquote auction or listing, I guess. And I missed out. He sold off three, I think it was three Lieutenant Blueberry collections from Epic as well too, and I missed it, and somebody else had grabbed them. To which I kind of joked that I thought I was the only one in town that was interested in this stuff. When I see that stuff pop up, I don't expect that anybody else is going to kind of jump on it, and the people who would be interested probably already have it, because we have a lot of, as every community does, we have a lot of people in the city who've been collecting way longer than I have. So that this, their stockpile, their stock is much more impressive than my meager collection here. So that was cool to find. And then we'll leave you with these because they are just, I mean, when we were looking at Mirkwood Times, when we were looking at the zines in a couple of videos back, I was talking about Phantasmagoria by Kenneth Smith, not Kenneth Brown, which I think I said earlier, Kenneth Smith. And it was one of those that the advertisements really jumped out at me. Um, I would also say to Russ, because he turned me on to this, that Infinity zine, was it called Infinity? He had those listed on the Comic World website, so I had inquired about him, but unfortunately he didn't have the issues anymore. I think he had 3 issues of it, but has since been sold, which was too bad. I was hoping to kind of jump on those as well. Needless to say, he had 4 issues of Phantasmagoria, and I bought all 4. Um, because when I'm looking online, the prices that he had compared to the prices that I'm seeing online for these things, uh, it was too good of a deal to pass up. And even though I'm not super familiar, I do know from reading that Comics Journal interview, he talks more about the fact that it's more images with prose and his fiction as opposed to comics. I looked in when I was looking through them. There was one though that had something that more resembled kind of comics. But either way, I mean, as I mentioned in those videos, his artwork is completely mind blowing. And I mean, the reproductions themselves in the advertisements were incredible, but seeing these in person, and again, the condition that these books are in, it's kind of a heavier cardstock cover. The condition that these are in, it's fucking mind blowing. It's almost like there's a couple of them here that I swear nobody has read. They haven't been cracked open until me. It's what it feels like. 64-page special. Thanks very much. Yeah, no, I'm excited about finding these. So we'll just kind of have a flip through some of these just to show you. I mean, this guy's art is just, it's outstanding. And the other thing that jumps flipping through these. I haven't sat and actually read one yet. I just kind of scanned through them just to check them out. There's a lot of different styles on display across these magazines. Um, it's goddamn impressive. Really, really impressive. And apparently the stories are nothing short of incredible from what I understand. So I'm looking forward to digging into these to see what he has in store. Specifically, there's an issue later on that revolves around, I think it was an insect colony, or was it the fish one? Maybe both of them. There was one story specifically, I think it was the insect one, that was really raved about, so I'm looking forward to digging into that. So that's one of the issues. What do we got here? There we go. So number one. So this is summer 1971, and I mean when this came out, it was $3. So to put that in, well, actually 1971. Yeah, yeah, no, that's still because I think when I was looking through the Nostalgia Journal stuff, they were offering a year subscription, and that was 1976. I think that issue, a year subscription to it was $2. So this, you're looking at one issue, $3 in 1971. Um, that would have been on the pricier side. But dude, oh, it's sick, all right, Weird Dad. Wait until you see these other covers and some of this art. It's fucking mind blowing. So this is book two from 1972. There's a cover for you. It's tough to do this with the computer screen with all that glare, but there you go. Love it. Absolutely love it. And then there's the back cover there. Hopefully that's showing up good for you. See if we can get it to focus on it a little more. Beautiful. Oof, looks great. Yeah, it really does. I was so happy. Here we go. Here's the one that's presented more comic strip or comic story. Yeah, it's funny how even after all this time, there's these discoveries of people that I'm just completely ignorant about, which is also why I appreciate having this YouTube outlet because there's so many. I'm lucky enough to have quite a few regular viewers that know a hell of a lot more about this kind of stuff than I ever could imagine. So I do really appreciate it. Everybody who watches and comments and kind of sets me straight on some of these things. Just stunning stuff. Look at this shit. These alien creatures and forget about it. Okay, so here we go. Let's move on to the next one as I just two more. So I managed to find four issues. Let's see if I can get this going here. Here we go. So this is Phantasmagoria number 3 from 1973. There's a goddamn cover. Like, forget about it. Forget about it. There's got to be a collection out there. I haven't looked, I haven't gone on a deep dive looking online for Kenneth Smith stuff. I'm thinking there must be a collection of his art out there somewhere, a book. This one has, again, the nice kind of covers. Yeah, to me, collecting isn't about. Here we go. To me, collecting isn't about acquiring, it's about discovery. Acquiring is kind of the end of the road. Absolutely. And that's really well said. The discovery is a big part of it. So this one has kind of a harder cover stock or a heavier cover stock, and then an insert. This first kind of page is really textured, this textured brown, a little thicker as well. Unfortunately, I don't know much about his history, but this appears to me that he unfortunately had a child that passed away. Whether it was his child or I'm not sure the relation specifically. I'm guessing that it was his child. Well, doesn't have the same last name. In loving memory of Garen Torrey. And so far in the interview that I'm reading, which would have taken place well after this came out because they're talking about his whole run, um, there's been no mention of it yet. But and then we'll show you some of the interiors here. and I can only assume that it's lettered by hand through the whole book. Sure looks like it to me. I don't think there is a collection. I'm not sure if he's done any art since the 80s. Oh, really? Hey, okay. Yeah, and I mean that could very well be. It would definitely explain why it's not a name that's I've come across even in passing, or at least if I have, I don't remember. And if that is the case, then maybe it's about time. Retrospective of his work, because this is just fucking beautiful. There you go. There's that one, and then finally, this is Phantasmagoria number 5. I'm not sure if it went 5 or 6 issues, but either way, there we do. We'll do the wraparound cover again. There's that. And then just because we've opened it up to the center spread, there's the center spread. Apparently, some of these last couple of stories were a little bit more of a downer. It's something that they did talk about, and Gary was saying it might have been about this issue that yes, there was some real downer stuff in it, dealing with mortality and that sort of thing. But he said he felt by the end of the story, he felt very uplifted, which Kenneth was excited to hear because he said not many people have caught on to that because he's just at that time he had just heard a lot of the negative about wow your stories are so depressing and da da da, and he said it wasn't his intention to write stories that were depressing or to make everybody to have these morbid kind of stories. So I'm curious. I'll probably sit and read one of these tonight. But for real, like if you find these, if you have a source wherever it is that you live, if you have a comics guy in whatever city you find yourself watching this video, do yourself a favor and just ask if they have or if they know anybody who has some old fanzines and the like, and ask for Phantasmagoria. If any of this appeals to you, jump on it. Because like I said, the video, I guarantee, isn't doing it as much justice as it is sitting here looking at this stuff right in front of your face. I'm already shooting emails, lol. Hilarious. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Where are you located there, Weird Dad? Are you the US of A, or are you up here with us in Canada? There we go. Yeah. So this one, summer 1977 in the States, Kate. Summer 1977, $7 whole. So again, I'm sure it's not something that was flying off the shelves. That's pretty steep, but again, the quality that you're getting, I mean, like I said, these are stunning to say the least. Right on. That was pretty much it for me. It's difficult not to dive back into the Comic World website, and it just every time I browse and I find some of these things and sit and look at what guys like Greg Harder and Doug Sleepa are kind of providing me, not that they're just providing stuff only to me, but the fact that there's these resources where I'm able to get this kind of thing is incredibly exciting to me. Um, yeah, I feel lucky that I have access to this stuff and that I can kind of go off on these tangents, starting off with a series of videos looking at Richard Corbin, diving into that, and then taking these detours along these Mirkwood Times and Phantasmagoria and all this stuff. And I make these discoveries and then punch in a website or ask somebody, and lo and behold, I'm able to access some of this stuff. Very lucky for that for sure. And I do, not that these guys watch these videos, but if by some chance they do, I really appreciate it. Um, the other thing that I guess will be kind of taking me away from some reading in probably, I don't know, whenever the parts get here. Probably it's probably going to take a couple of weeks for stuff to get here. So there's a not sure, I don't remember where he's based out of, overseas anyway. Soma Laboratories, Soma Electronics. I'm not sure. Anyway, it has some synthesizers. One of them called the Lyra 8. Um, recently, they're very expensive synths, like really expensive. So I'd always just kind of watched the videos and thought about how much fun they would be to play. For the Lyra 8, there was there was some information on it months and months ago now that he was going to be offering it as a kit for $100 US, and this is a synth that goes for at least $1,000 American, probably more. So I put myself on the mailing list, and about a week ago, he got in touch with me saying, "Hey," or somebody from the company got in touch with me saying, "Hey, your kit is ready. Your name has come up. Send us payment to this, that, and the other, and then we'll get it in the mail to you." So that's on its way to me. It's more of an advanced kit. So they're going to send me the board. They're going to send me some of the ICs, but then a lot of the kind of capacitors, resistors, etc. I'm going to have to source myself, which is fine. There's a place in town that I was looking on their website already because they sent me a parts list already, and he has 98% of the stuff I'm going to need. So that's really great. And that's just looking at that one source. So that's going to be a project for me. And I imagine that when that comes, it's not going to be a 1 day build for me. It's going to take me a little while just because it's still new to me, even though I built those two small bastel castles before. This is a different beast. I'm super excited about it. If you're curious, Lyra and then the number 8, just have a search. It's more of kind of like a droning, um, he calls it an organismic, I believe, synthesizer. So it's, yes, you do have some controls, but a lot of the people that do reviews of the videos, they say, yes, you do have some controls over what it's going to do, but it's more that the synth controls you. It just kind of will one little knob turn and tweak, and it'll just completely take you off into a different realm. There's two pads, and you kind of make the connection to create the sound, like with your kind of skin on these pads. Looks incredible. I've already started to think of an idea of what I'm going to build for a box. I'm thinking of doing some colored Lexan or not Lexan, sorry, uh, um, plexiglass type of thing, and kind of have it built up on a bit of an angle. Maybe I have some LED lights. Maybe I'll put some LED lights in there, but something that's going to react to kind of my black light setup that I have out in the other room when I kind of make my crazy music and whatever. So I imagine that there's going to be some radio silence from me for a little while, and that I won't be getting into as much reading once all that stuff shows up, because even the past couple of days, my reading has drastically gone down as I've been kind of preparing and watching videos and thinking about this coming and what I'm going to build. And I'm super excited about it. I'm also very nervous about it because I don't want to fuck this thing up. Um, because of my lack of experience, but I have enough confidence or enough stupidity, that I'm just going to go forward with it. So I'm sure I'll talk about that once that project's underway. Maybe I'll shoot a couple of videos, process videos of as it's kind of coming together. And then, of course, I'll show off the final product, and do some sort of video where you can hear some of the sounds. Other than that, I mean, I'm still, it's not like I've stopped reading the Den stuff. I was still going with, or sorry, the Richard Corbin stuff, still going with them. It's just that we haven't sat and done a video about that. The Eclipse series of Eclipse comics videos that I was doing have really fallen by the wayside, because once I kind of took this turn into once I kind of took this turn into Corbin, all of the ideas for Eclipse just kind of fell away. That's kind of the way my reading goes. I find something and I just latch onto it and explore that territory. Eventually, we will get back to looking at these Eclipse titles. I do think that that's a important series of videos to have out there. And if you like that sort of esoteric synth explorations and theory, seriously look into Peter Blasser over at Seattle Lombardi. Oh yes, yeah. I'm well familiar with Seattle Lombardi, if I'm pronouncing that right. A friend of mine, Fletcher, who lives in Oakland, he has some of that gear, and it's amazing stuff. I have looked. I haven't dug deep into it, but I have watched some videos, and that stuff is beautiful, and seems like there's a lot of just weird shit that you can do with that. The whole thing with like synthesizers and synthesis that really appeals to me is this idea again of, and I guess it kind of it parallels a lot of my reading and things too. There's this sense that anything can happen and that you're going to make these discoveries as you're, especially with something that's maybe more of a modular kind of base where you're patching things. Um, yes, you can kind of get your head around it and know kind of what's happening and how you're making these connections and what they should be doing. But even with that little bit of knowledge, there's still this stuff that surprises you. And then having all this equipment interact with each other, it almost becomes like this living organism that you're sort of just creating these atmospheres for, and they just start to take over and talk to each other and interact and create just this incredible stuff. But yes, I know those synths very well. They are definitely, those are another ones where they're on my list. Um, the fact that a lot of these companies are around, and a lot of them now are, there's more and more, or maybe it's the more that I'm investigating this stuff, there's a lot of kind of DIY kits for a lot of this stuff out there, and that's the part that excites me, because some of this stuff, Soma synthesizers, he's got a new, it's a drum machine, and it's got, you can kind of sorry, as I dig my nose there, apologies. It has some points on it where you can kind of you can fuck with it, basically. So it's a drum machine, very basic idea of just everything you would expect with the drum machine. But then there's these, I think he said 100 points where you can kind of just fuck around with the sounds. You can also patch it into your pre-existing uh, uh, Eurorack system if you do have one. Um, I'm hoping that that's another one that he eventually makes as a kit as well, because I would love to get my hands on that one. That one I think is like a $1,500 synth though. The idea that all knowledge is within, explore through intuition. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you'll see those videos. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Weird Dad, thanks very much for participating. It's great to see. I believe you've been in the chat before, but it's always nice to hear from people. 64-page special, as always. I appreciate you hanging out. That's it. Let's end this right here at about the 40-minute mark. Good luck, Weird Dad. I hope you're able to find some of those magazines there through your connections, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take it easy.